hopefully in the chat box, you'll see, and if I advance this slide, if you use that QR code right there or grab from the chat the link, we're asking everyone to share with us in one word how 2021 legislative session went. So, Jenny, should I stop sharing to see your screen?
Yes.
That makes sense. Awesome. So in one word, and so if you type in, you can type in multiple words, but they just have to be single. So if you want to say 2 or 3, that's fine. Just do them as single entries. Historic, I suspect that COVID may have had something to do with that, maybe. Stressful. Unfinished, yeah, I know there are a few folks on the line that are sort of going to be tethering back and forth today, still finishing up some session activities. Eclectic, I see people putting stuff in the chat also, thank you. Eclectic, Senator Moran, I like that. Oh, that's good, great. Demanding. Productive, these are really good words. Let's give it one more second to see if anyone else wants to say anything about their session.
I was just going to say, remember, the bigger the word gets, that's the more people have entered that same word. So
productive. That's and historic. Those are both very good words. Exhausting. I'm sure for many of you who are legislators in a part-time legislature, even though it's more than a full-time job, I'm sure you're very busy.
I like bananas in there.
I have one right here, which I won't eat today. Stimulating, excellent. Well, thank you all so much for playing along and just giving us a taste of what's happening in your state. Hopefully some of these words, innovative and stimulating, dynamic, hopefully these are words that you'll also be able to use to describe your experience as an early learning fellow. So Jenny, I will go and share my screen. Awesome. Does that work? Yeah. So the primary goal really of today's meeting is just an opportunity for us to really meet one another and get to know one another. We'll get into more details tomorrow and throughout the summer and through Thinkific. I'll also just mention as a quick trivia question, if anyone happens to know what photo that State House is of, please unmute and share with us. There might be a point out there for you. There is someone on the line that I believe should certainly know, but we'll see.
That's
so
the
if you know
Kansas Capitol.
You got it. That's a point. That's a point for you. Very good. Thank you. So I'm just gonna move this slide along. So I want to quickly just tell you a little bit about who's on the line and who's participating with us today. So this just shows the 17 states in which we have fellows in this 2021 cohort. We have had fellows from nearly all states. So Virginia and North Dakota have not yet participated. So if you know colleagues there, tell them they want to be part of this. But 17 states in this cohort. Here we have just, you answered in your application, you shared with us how long you've been in the legislature. So you can see we have a few that are pretty new to it. And then we actually have one person joining us who's been part of the legislature for 28 years. So congratulations. But just nice to see the years of experience amongst all of you. One of the questions we also asked in the application was for you to rate your knowledge level. And so you could see the better part of folks indicated intermediate. I sure do hope that regardless where you are on this scale, there'll be something that you can learn and take away from this experience. And then this slide, you might remember we asked you to tell us your top 3 legislative priorities. And so the early childhood workforce was #1, which is really exciting for my colleague, Jenny Palmer. We're going to talk about virtually all of these things, either through our Thinkific platform or through our Zoom meetings. There were a few other things that didn't make it on the list. There were 1 or 2 votes for suspension and expulsion in the early years, early childhood data systems, paid leave, and then someone shared universal preschool as a legislative priority for them. So what I'm going to do now, and I'm really, really excited, we have a handful of folks who have gone through the Early Childhood Fellows program in the past here today to share a few words with you about their experience. So I will turn things over to Senator Claire Wilson from the state of Washington. After we hear from Senator Wilson, we'll hear from Representative Bergen from the great state of Iowa. Then we'll travel to the Midwest. We'll hear from legislative staffer Bethany Rasmussen in the Wisconsin legislature with Senator Joan Ballweg. And finally, we'll go to the Empire State and we're going to hear from Assemblywoman Solage. So with that, Senator Wilson, I will stop sharing and the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, deepest gratitude from my colleagues being flexible. I think that's one of the things you learn in being a fellow or in being in the legislature. And I just happened to have a 6-month dentist appointment. So instead of going last, they're letting me go first. So the slide's correct. I'm the one that just put a kink into things this morning. But I just want to welcome you all to the Early Learning Fellows. I was through the cohort in 2019. And I'll say I was one that came in with a whole bunch of knowledge around the content and around early learning, but very little knowledge, if you will, about the inside out and about the legislative pieces and kind of how you put that all together. And I had been one that had been taking families down to the legislature for many, 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 many years to advocate for a system of support. And the best thing in the world was to finally be in the Senate so that no one had to convince me. I just needed to convince others and then do the work. And I think the best thing about being part of any kind of a group or a cohort or a fellowship is around, I think, the access to experts. It's the access to other bright ideas for when you put things together, it creates a wonderful puzzle and a picture, because I think our early learning world is not an institution. It's not an institution of government, nor an institution of education. And so it's all of these informal systems woven together. And the more we can create that infrastructure and support, but maintain the flexibility to meet families' needs, the better it is. And then I think also just the incredible access to the NCSL staff itself and the expertise, and they bring the research, the history, and all of those things. And I think what stood out and what resonated to me was the opportunity to create the roadmap that had been in my brain for a long time, but I had not really been able to put down on paper, which then allowed us to pass historic and landmark legislation this session called the Fair Start for Kids Act, which is the biggest investment ever in the state of Washington for our children and families, prenatal all the way through youth. And so I'm going to stop there and just say many, many thanks to all the folks on the phone, on Zoom. And I see Representative Wicks, and I can hardly wait to get back into session and we can start planning big again. So with that, thank you so much for the invitation, and take advantage, regardless of whether you're in person or on Zoom. There's just amazing folks to meet and great things to learn.
Thank you so much, Senator Wilson. Representative Bergen.
Good morning, Allison, and the rest of the cohort. I want to extend my welcome to the new cohort of Early Childhood Fellows. I've personally been fortunate to have nearly 25 years of experience in the field of early childhood as a county elected official, as a program coordinator, and most recently as a state representative in my 5th year in the Iowa legislature. I rely on NCSL to keep me informed and up to date. To give you some perspective on overall of the importance of early childhood, the Perry Preschool Project began in 1962 and ran through 1967. It was a forerunner to Head Start, launched in 1965. Progress of the Perry program participants was later documented at age 27 and again at age 40. The lifetime effects high scope Perry preschool study through age 40 was released in 2000. The study documented several astounding results in education, economic performance, crime prevention, and healthy families, with higher graduation rates, particularly for female students. More program adults were employed at age 40 with higher annual earnings, fewer arrests and subsequent jail time, and more fathers involved in raising their children, documenting some of the impact of that in early childhood investment. Coinciding with the preschool study in 2000, the National Academy of Sciences published the book From Neurons to Neighborhoods, The Science of Early Childhood Development, which gained wide acceptance based on early childhood studies. Documenting recent studies, the book helped increase awareness and spur action in addressing the importance of child's early experiences in impacting positive long-term outcomes. It's astounding to me that at the time of the results for the long-term impact of the Prairie Preschool program were released, 90% of the studies on early childhood had been done in the prior 15 years. This tenfold increase in studies has continued in its exponential growth with the further development of model prenatal and early childhood programs rooted in proven studies and evaluated for evidence-based results. The areas of studies have expanded to include adverse childhood experiences, resiliency, teenage brain development, and interventions with juvenile offenders. NCSL is a resource you can rely on to keep you informed on evidence-based programs with proven results that provide a positive return on investment. And I want to thank Allison and the staff at NCSL for their continued work and service and for the opportunity to welcome the group today.
Thank you so much, Representative Bergen. I'm going to go on over to Wisconsin and my friend Bethany Rasmussen. You were Senator Ballwig before on there, so that's better.
Yes, yes, I tried to change to reflect who is actually speaking.
Okay.
Thanks for having me, Allison, and welcome to the new class. I was part of the 5th cohort in 2016 when I was, I think my title was research assistant for Representative Ballwig at the time. I'm now her chief of staff. Joan is new in the Senate, but we've worked over the last several years to try and implement what I learned as an early childhood fellow. And actually, Senator Ballwig was also an early childhood fellow in another cohort. We took that information we gained and worked over several years to implement a early childhood legislative children's caucus in Wisconsin to really try and maintain a certain education level of early childhood issues amongst all of the colleagues. If you're new in the legislature or you've been around for a while, you know probably 25% of the legislature turns over every year or every 2 years when your session restarts, and you find yourself trying to educate your colleagues on some of the things that you've learned to make sure you keep momentum and keep improving on your legislative policies and projects. So with the information that we gained through NCSL's Fellows Program, we have hosted seminars on early brain science, on the public-private partnerships that you can do to instill high-quality early childhood care and education in your state, maternal and infant mortality. We had some of the health team come to Madison and testify for us, and we've also helped facilitate briefings between our Department of Children and Families and the associations that deal with early childhood care and education to educate on, they got a Pritzker grant last year and what they were going to do with that money. And it really, I think, elevates the collaboration that happens amongst all levels here in Wisconsin. And I think a lot of that is thanks to the programming that's brought to you, now at the beginning of your NCSL Fellows Program. So I'm sorry to talk so fast, but we're in session and we're about to finish our last day of budget committee work tomorrow. So I'm very tired and very anxious for Friday, but excited that you guys are starting this journey together. And thanks for asking me, Allison.
Thank you, Bethany. Yes, and good luck with budget stuff. That sounds like long days. And finally, I'm excited to introduce you all to Assemblywoman Solage from New York, who is also involved with NCSL's executive committee. So Assemblywoman, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Allison. And just a welcome and congratulations to the new cohort. Again, I'm Assemblywoman Mikhail Salaj, and I represent a portion of Long Island, New York. So if I sound weird, if I say water wrong, don't mind me. I'm just an average New Yorker. I'm also executive member in NCSL, and you can tell I just love the organization. It's done so much for me as a new legislator when I entered the legislature in 2013. And still now, it's just a vital resource. So, I tell everyone that, just dive into NCSL. They have awesome databases. They have a great staff who's knowledgeable, and they have also great programming, which you're experiencing right now. I was an early learning fellow in 2014, and I was also a maternal and child health fellow. I did a lot of other programming with them. And so really, I just encourage you to dive into issues around early childhood, because, that age range from 0 to 8 is really a clear developmental continuum. And that's why so many funders, so many people are just interested in that stage, because when you invest money into the early years, you get the money back, whether it's through home visiting, whether it's through, childcare, through, encouraging fathers to be a part of raising their children. There are so many aspects of early care that you can get into. I encourage you. As a legislator, I pulled many great ideas from NCSL. I had my colleagues say the greatest bills come from NCSL. And so, as I said before, my policy area was around, or is around, early childhood. So they helped me hone and draft my legislation about donor breast milk. New York was one of the first states to ensure that donor breast milk was accessible to preemies. And I thank NCSL for helping me look at what other states are doing, what other legislation was impending and not passed, and what we can make and better our legislation. We did a lot of work around maternal depression. And I also had Jenny speak at a podcast, or on a podcast that I had about lactation accommodations in airport. And that was really fun. It was a bipartisan neutral conversation, but it was great because we actually had an expert that was able to talk and have conversations. So, I encourage you just to also network with your elected officials that are on this Zoom call. I know it's difficult, but I encourage you to try to get their phone numbers, try to get their emails, because many legislators that I met along the way at NCSL, I still talk to today. I was just talking with the Assemblywoman from New Jersey about period poverty, and we're having this conversation, and I wouldn't have met her if it wasn't for NCSL. So, with that, to the end, I thank you for just, ensuring that our younger years are focused on. We know that our childcare system is collapsing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our children and our families are going through great stress. And what you're doing right here is really, if you're a religious person, God's work. You're building on the next generation. As Frederick Douglass said, it's easier to build young men or young people than to repair older men, or whatever it's called. I just had a baby, so I'm like kind of like all over the place. But really, just you're doing the work that is needed. So I thank you, and I encourage you just to be involved in this organization. And once again, thank you.
That's terrific. Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. I should mention that the alumni network is roughly 240 individuals from throughout the country. And we did just launch an alumni series. So after the program, we don't just throw you out and leave you. We hope you continue to be involved and deepen your knowledge. And Melissa threw in the chat information about the alumni series that just launched, and will be, again, in the future, we'll be doing it. So, I think now what we're going to do, actually, since we, again, are not all together in one place, we do want to learn who's on the line and who's participating. A couple things throughout the program, you'll see we have a listserv, and we really do want to try to encourage you all to engage with one another and ask questions. So many of you have expertise from what's happening in your state. So right now what we're going to do is have everyone briefly share something about where they are. I guess I should say it like that. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order and call out names. And in about 45 seconds, if possible, what we're hoping you can do is share something from your desk or your workspace that's important to you, that either motivates you to do your work or inspires you, or just you know, you look over here and there's that picture and it makes you happy during the day. So this is just an opportunity, again, to get to learn where folks are throughout the country and where they're learning today. So I'm going to first call on my colleague, Heather Hanna. She's a program director in the Children and Families program. And then I will go through and call each of you to share with us. Heather?
Good morning, everyone. As Allison said, my name is Heather Hanna, and the item that I'd like to share with you all this morning is my time cube. So you set the timer and then you put it up to the time that you want. And I find that this is a real motivator tool. I'm sure, like many of you, you're doing multiple things throughout the day, and this can help. This helps me to focus and kind of stay productive on task. And it also helps remind me to take breaks, because I'm sure, like all of you, you're busy and it's hard to take those breaks. So helps me take breaks and rest my mind and also rest my eyes, because as we're looking more and more at our screens, we need to make sure we're taking care of our eyes as well. So thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing what motivates all of you on your desk.
Thank you. So I will apologize in advance. If I say anyone's name wrong, please correct me. I will try my darndest. And I know there are a few people who might not be on the line, so if they don't chime in, we'll just move along. So the first person is Senator Ralph Alvarado from Kentucky. Senator, are you on the line? Seeing not. Molly Aziz from Georgia, will you share something with us, please?
I'm here. Okay, something that I keep on my desk that helps me during the height of session is a little quote card, and it says, "You can't calm the storm, so stop trying. What you can do is calm yourself. The storm will pass." So anytime I'm stressed, I remember that, or try to remember that I can't do anything about all of the stress, but I can calm myself down. So that kind of helps me during the height of things. So
terrific. Thank you for sharing. Representative Sonia Barker from Arkansas.
Can you hear me?
Yes. We can't
okay,
see
well,
you, we can hear you.
Well, you can't see me because I just came from tennis tryouts.
Oh.
I teach high school, and I coach the tennis team at the high school here in Smackover first semester, and then I am in session second semester. So trust me, I'm doing you a favor. You can't see me. Came in hot and sweaty. But that being said, I do have in my office as a legislator, I have a painting that a former student painted, and it just helps me remember why I'm doing all of this, the teaching the first semester, as well as the legislating the second semester, and it's what's best for our future generations.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you, Representative. I appreciate that. Representative Nathan Bia from Rhode Island. Representative, are you on the line? Don't know if I saw your name. Nope. Representative Paula Calhoun from South Carolina.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Paula Calhoun, South Carolina, and I am on my cell phone, and I apologize for no video, but I wanted to ring in and join the group. But the most important thing that I have on my desk is my administrative assistant, who is just absolutely wonderful. She's at my desk most of the time, and I could not do my job without her. She is spectacular. She makes my job so much easier. So I share that with all of y'all. I've just got a great legislative aide.
That's terrific. I'm sure a few of you out here might feel the same way. So thank you for sharing that. Let's see, Senator Sandra Cano from Rhode Island.
Buenas tardes. How are you, everybody? I'm Sandra Cano. I'm from Rhode Island, and a couple of things that I have in my desk. First, a picture of my family is right in front of me, but I can't show you. And it keeps me grounded and reminded of, you know, where we come from, and don't forget that. But this one is the one that I want to change with you. Is a little thing that says good vibes only. And the reason why it says good vibes only is because I think that the work that we do, we get surrounded a lot of different problems and challenges, that it reminds me that positivity is always at the center of things if we do have good vibes. and we have people that just kind of give you that energy. It helps you throughout all of those challenges and all of those things that we really need to have in mind to resolve. So that's the things that I wanted to share with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. That was excellent. Representative Ashton Clemens from North Carolina, are you on the line? Okay, we're going to jump over to an NCSL introduction. We're going to kind of go back and forth. NCSL introduction, Wade Fickler. He's the group director of the Children and Families Program. Wade?
Hi, everyone. So good to see all of you. I have in front of me a framed poster that you're not going to be able to see. It's from an event that I organized about 20 years ago as a Peace Corps volunteer in Ukraine. And it was the first time that business community and government leaders had come together in the city where I was stationed to have conversations about working together and building trust and collaboration across the three sectors. And when I look at it, as I said, nearly 20 years later, it's a reminder to me of the importance of honest and effective government and the roles that you play. Because I have seen what happens when those characteristics are not in place. So thank you all for your service.
Thanks, Wade. Representative Lisa Damuth from Minnesota.
Thank you. I'm going to show you a picture of my family. So this is who they are. And I'm using my phone because I can't reach the picture that's actually up. But what they do is there's a variety of ages, there's a variety of careers, all the way from small business ownership, medium business ownership, education. And I think that they are what inspires me. They've encouraged me to run for office after I decided to, and all the way from the grandkids, all the way up through my husband. It's an encouragement and a grounding and what helps me even during the hard times to kind of stay refreshed. And so I would say it's definitely my family and what they represent.
Thank you, Representative. Next up, we're gonna go to Senator Brenda Dietrich from Kansas.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm not actually in my office. Our session ended mid-May, so I'm at home, but on my wall, this is my 5th year in the legislature. Every year that I've been in the legislature, I try and purchase something that an artist in our community has created that reminds me of Kansas. So you might think sunflowers and buffalo and those kinds of things, but for me, it's paintings of our Flint Hills, which reminds me of the vastness of our state. I'm actually in an urban area. And so, you know, in Topeka, I actually live in Topeka. So I need to remind myself that we have 105 counties in Kansas and we all look very different. And so those paintings are just a way to remind me that I represent not only my constituents, but the entire state of Kansas. And the other thing I would tell you is my office mate and I are, we think it's very, very important that we're always kind to everyone. So our office is an oasis of kindness. And so whenever anyone is having a difficult day in the chamber or in their own personal life, we just invite them in and we smother them with kindness. And that's how we survive our sessions and try to make good public policy.
Smother them with kindness. I want to remember that and make sure I use it at some point. I like that a lot. Next, we're going to go to Senator Alana DiMario from Rhode Island.
Hi there. Thank you so much, everybody. Last March, when we could kind of see where things were going and everyone was sort of preparing to stay home again, I was not yet in the legislature. I was and still am a therapist in private practice, and so I was trying to prepare myself for the reality of doing telehealth sessions with my clients for a period of time. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure I had at home with me, and so I'll kind of move over here, were lots of plants. And so I went like a little bit overboard with bringing a lot of new plants into my home, and I work in different workspaces, when I'm seeing clients, when I'm doing committee hearings now. And one of the things that I just like to make sure is that there's always something green nearby. And the thing that brings to mind for me is one, Rhode Island winters and early springs are very bleak. And so seeing some green and some life just kind of reminds me that, that's kind of always coming and always around the corner. but also especially this little guy, I've had to repot him like 2 times over the last year. And so even though you don't see it from day to day, you can see over a period of time that growth happens and change happens. And that's not always immediate. And it's not always something that, you know, again, you can see happen, you know, in an instant or overnight. But it's just a really good reminder that kind of with that constant care and attention and sort of moving things forward in small ways, that growth and change do happen. And again, that's something that, you know, I really try to carry with me in my therapy practice, and also something that I've brought with me in my work as a legislator. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Next, we're going to go to Representative Charlene Fight from Arkansas. Representative, are you on the line? All right, moving right along, Representative Jeremy Gray from the great state of Alabama.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeremy Gray, and my item I would like to share is a couple of them because I get souvenirs sometimes. And I've got everything from books to like Gundy, you know, little configurations. And so I only could find like a postcard. And the postcard is geared around yoga in K-12 public schools. So I actually lifted the 28-year ban in Alabama for yoga. And so I'm like a yoga rock star. So I get all these books and things of that nature. So this is just from someone from Indiana just congratulating me for actually bringing it into law. And so I get these all the time and I keep them on my desk. And this one actually says namaste, because you know in the bill, you can't say it. So I thought that was neat. And so I just keep those souvenirs around, and I get so many every week now around one bill, but it's enjoyable to know that the hard work is beyond Alabama, because sometimes it's come from Hawaii and California and, you know, India, all these different places. And so this would be something that just a reminder of, you know, being resilient and what hard work does, because I introduced the bill in 2019, but I didn't pass the bill till 2021 this year. So that's the process a lot of times. And, you know, people get in and they're young and they're ambitious. Sometimes you have to understand it's a marathon. You have to, you know, have a steady pace and then finish in the end. And so this is my souvenir.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I should mention, we're not only going to sit here. Typically, if we're in person, we take a walk at lunch for those that are interested, but we will kind of stand up and stretch a little bit over the days. So you won't be glued to your computer screen. Next up, Senator Ruth Hardy from Vermont.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. It was hard for me to choose something, as I'm sure it was hard for all of you to choose something. And so I do have 2 things that I wanted to mention. One is I always keep a chocolate bar in my desk drawer, especially when we're on Zoom. If the committee meetings get long or frustrating or whatever, I have chocolate to help me get through the meetings. And I also have above my head a bulletin board where I post notes, handwritten notes that I've gotten from constituents. And similar to Representative Gray, this session we passed actually a pretty impressive landmark bill on early childhood education. So I got a lot of notes from kids, and I especially love this one, which is a picture that says Vermont, thank you. And it's a picture of the Green Mountains, both during the summer when they're green and during the winter when they're white, with kids skiing on them. So it's a nice reminder that our work is important and that kids were able to benefit from our work. And it's certainly relevant to the work that we're doing this summer. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. It's nice that you got some coloring there. And I liked the Green Mountains and skiing down the mountain. That's very clever. Next, we're going to go over to Senator John Haste from Oklahoma.
Good morning from Oklahoma. It's good to be with you. You know, our session ended May 27th. By Constitution, we have to end by the last Friday in May. So we got through a day early. But so I'm not at the Capitol. I'm actually at one of my offices here at the House. But the item that I kind of landed on is I have a model of a B-17 aircraft from World War II. And I look at that. So every time I'm in my office, it reminds me of those that came before us. that provided the freedom, made the sacrifices for us to give us the opportunity to be able to have legislatures like we do, to be able to have the freedoms that we do. And it's just a great reminder to say, hey, you're standing on the shoulders of a lot of people that came before you. So, but again, glad to be part of this group.
Thank you, Senator. Next up, we've got Representative Jamie Keel from Alabama. Okay, we'll move over to Senator B'nai Misalusha from Hawaii.
Aloha, everyone. Good morning. I'm in a hotel room in Hilo, so I'm not in my office. It's 6 o'clock in the morning here, but I'm privileged to be here. And the one that well, let me first of all share with you a picture of my family, because that's the one that really inspires me and grounds me. I come from a large family. There's 5 kids and 20 grandchildren and about, here we go. Oh, sorry. Here we go. And about, I think 8 great grandchildren. But I do have a plaque in my office, and it has State Mother of the Year plaque. In 2007, I was State Mother of the Year. But what is interesting about that is during that year, I was held up as a poster child, as the exemplary mother. But when I come home, and God knows sometimes all the craziness in my home, and I told my children, don't you dare do anything during that year while I'm State Mother of the Year. But what it really demonstrates is that there are so many people struggling out there that they keep up a good front, but then we really need to develop policies that would enable them, that would help them, because they may seem as if they're holding it all together, but many, many times they're struggling like many of us. So I am looking forward to learning. I'm a very new legislator. I got appointed in July of last year and got elected in November. So I'm looking forward to learning from everyone. Aloha.
Thank you, Senator. What we're going to do now actually is transition. We're going to do another activity, learn a little bit, and then we're going to finish with the next 15 people. I do want to go out of script real fast because I do see Representative, excuse me, Amy Waslewick on the line, and I know you might be bouncing back and forth. I wonder if you'll still be on the line at about 20 past 12 your time, or would you like to introduce yourself now?
I'll be here for the entire time today, so we're good.
Perfect, great. Well, then I'm gonna turn things over to my colleague, Melissa, to continue this conversation.
Thank you so much, Allison, and so nice to meet half of you, and I'm really excited to hear from everyone else a little bit later. Right now, though, we'd like to transition a little bit. As Allison said, I am really, really excited to introduce you, if you want to put it that way, to someone whose work I followed and have respected for a number of years now, as all the way back to my graduate student days a long time ago. Distinguished Professor of Psychology at the University of California, Davis, Ross Thompson. He'll be coming on in just a minute for a recording. He's been publishing his research and books, as well as contributing to landmark reports on child development for decades. And he's applied his research in developmental science to public policy related to children and families on topics such as early childhood mental health, school readiness, divorce and child custody concerns, and child maltreatment prevention. So he's very relevant to all of our conversations we're going to be having as a part of the Fellows Program. He was also on the National Research Council Institute of Medicine Committee that published that landmark report comments a couple of moments ago, as well as another workforce that produced Transforming the Workforce for Children Birth through Age 8, a Unifying Foundation in 2015. So he's done a lot of really great work that's been contributing to the field for a number of years now. And a name that hopefully pops out to you from your earlier work leading up to today is Yuri Bronfenbrenner. That's the model by which we're basing all of our activities with you through the Fellows Program. Dr. Thompson was also awarded the Yuri Bronfenbrenner Award for lifetime contribution to developmental psychology in the service of science and society from the American Psychological Association just a few years ago in 2018. He's really sorry he couldn't join us today. He had a previous family engagement, but he was still kind enough to take the time to record a video for you and for us, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. Please also, as you watch, jot down any questions or any feedback that you'd like for me to pass along to him. And you can share that with myself or any one of us from NCSL, and I'll make sure that he gets it. And if you have a question, we'll make sure that we get an answer for you, but he's happy to do that. So without further ado, let me cue up his video. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Ross Thompson. I'm a professor of psychology at the University of California, Davis. And I'm so glad you're involved in this NCSL Early Childhood Fellows program because of the great benefits you can bring to young children and their families in the state where you work and also throughout the country. I've been asked to say a few words about why early childhood matters. And it's a topic that really lays the foundation for some of what you'll be learning and doing as part of the fellowship program. And so let me, without further ado, turn to the inevitable PowerPoint. I probably won't be telling you anything new when I remind you that a lot of the reason we have such an appreciation of the importance of early experience is because of the astonishing research on early brain development. And what we have learned from that research has been that the early childhood months and years are a period of astonishing growth in the pace and the significance of neural connections and of brain developing capacity over this period of time. In many respects, the brain is developing at a more rapid pace in the early months and years of life than it ever will at a subsequent period of development. But what the brain development research has really done is to help confirm and extend what we've already known from literally thousands of studies of the development of young children's thinking, reasoning, learning, problem-solving skills, the development of their social awareness, their emotional perception, their self-regulation, and in many other capacities we have seen in those studies the ways in which the early years lay a foundation for the developing capacities that will follow from those. To illustrate that, let me just show you four important brain behavior advances. And I use these to illustrate because these are areas in which it is not only well documented the important advances that take place in children's behavior in these areas, but also the documented neural connections that are taking place in the brain areas that subserve those behavioral capacities. Consider the most foundational of all, the development of sensory capacities, seeing and hearing that, for example, enable children to be able to keep in touch and to be able to transact with the world in which they live. These begin prenatally, and they also continue to extend in development throughout the early months and the first couple of years of life. Or consider language, such an important foundational capacity, not only for communication, but also for thinking and reasoning. That too begins prenatally as the fetus is able to hear vocal sounds from the intrauterine environment, but also extends through the early adolescent years. If we consider higher cognitive functions, which we typically think is developing in adolescence, yes, they do, but they also begin emerging well into the early childhood years. In fact, some foundations are laid in place prenatally. And then if we also look at perhaps one of the most important developing advances, namely the capacity for self-regulation, one that continues to develop in the early adult years, but again, has its foundations in some of the advances in the brain and also children's behavioral capacities in the very early months and years of life. And if you look at these, you can see pretty readily why the first 2 years are the focus of so much attention by developmental researchers. And even beyond the first 2 years, why the first 5 years are of such developmental significance. In many respects, these accomplishments lay the foundation for much of what follows later. And that foundation may be a strong and secure one, but it also may be relatively weak and compromised, especially if children are growing up in unstimulating and adverse environments in the early years. And one of the ways that researchers have begun to think about the importance of early childhood is in terms of what we call actually a snowball effect. The technical term for this is called developmental cascades, but I think the snowball effect is actually a little bit easier to wrap our minds around. And it really describes the ways in which early experiences and influences are now believed to create a set of corollary influences lead to the development of characteristics and competencies that influence other developing processes that together over time begin to create a progressive momentum toward either positive or negative developmental outcomes. So that as children are growing up from the infancy period to early childhood and eventually to young adulthood, they are carrying with them the legacy of the developmental influences that have had their genesis prenatally, many of them, but many of them also in the early months of life, and have simply created a progressive momentum that is helping to move development along a particular trajectory. These trajectories can, as I mentioned earlier, be constructive and positive and lead children toward successful adult accomplishments, or they can be more negative, depending upon, in many respects, the kinds of early experiences and influences that children have had. I want to emphasize this is not a deterministic model. We all know that things can happen, that can intervene, that can significantly alter an adult's life course. But we also know that as children continue to progress developmentally, there is this sense of a forward moving that is built upon early experiences and influences. And this is one of the reasons why we think those early years are so important. So how do we support early childhood development? And I think in general, we can think of at least two broad strategies. One is to promote healthy development, to provide children with the experiences and the opportunities that are going to really take advantage of the incredibly strong pace of early brain development, but also help to create a positive momentum that will help lead children toward more progressive accomplishments as they move out of early childhood and into the grade school and adolescent years. But for many children, one of the other ways in which we support early child development is in terms of removing obstacles, recognizing that these children are sometimes born into circumstances or encounter experiences that promote more adversity, that create greater difficulties to their developing success. And some of what we can best do for these children, for children in these circumstances, is to remove some of the obstacles to their success. What is important about your being part of this program is that we are at an historically unprecedented moment where we know much more than we've ever known before about the strategies that work both to promote healthy development, but also the strategies that work to help to remove obstacles to success. And what I'd like to do in the time remaining is to provide you with an example of this. One example with respect to strategies we've learned that can help to promote healthy development. And then another example with respect to strategies we've learned with respect to removing obstacles to success. And what I hope to show you is that part of what makes this an historically unprecedented moment is the fact that we now know much more, not just about the nature and course of early development, but about the tangible things we can do based on evidence-based research that will really make a difference. And this makes it a particularly exciting time then for thinking about how do we translate that into effective policies and practices. Practices that will involve coordinating both efforts we can make to produce or promote family and caregiver enablement that are coordinated with community resources that are available to families, and that also draw upon local and state systems and policy consistent with Bronfenbrenner's model.
All right, I'd like to take a quick break there and introduce you to a couple of quick little poll questions. So those will pop up, and we just put both of them up there on the same time. Take your time and just read through these and choose what you think is the best answer. They're not meant to trick you in any way. We just wanted to throw something in there to kind of break the content up and really drive home the points that we're hoping that they make for you. So we'll give you just a minute or two. There we go. Maybe just like a few more seconds for finish up question 1 and then get to question 2. I see some people still reading.
Looks like we've got close to 80% of folks. Maybe another minute or
yeah, just a few more seconds. Mm-hmm. we'll give everybody a chance to read through them. I know for the second one, there's a lot of options to get through as well. All right, what do you say? Does that look pretty good, Allison?
Yep.
Okay, so yes, most people got the first one right. According to Dr. Thompson's snowball effect that he discussed, child development is largely unaffected by growing up in unstimulating and adverse environments. Most people got that right. That's false. What he was saying with the snowball effect is that things that happen early in developmental phases of children's lives can definitely affect their life later on into young adulthood and subsequently after that. So, but as he mentioned also, that also means there's opportunities to intervene. So that one was written a little bit tricky, might have tripped some people up, but thank you for looking at that. And then question 2, how can we support early childhood development? Most people got that one right as well, all of the above. We can remove obstacles, as Dr. Thompson just mentioned. We can promote healthy development through adding things through policy. And from previous readings and things that we've had you look at, also supporting resiliency and adaptive skills are part of that. So thank you so much. Go ahead and start the video again.
So let's begin with considering examples of ways in which we can promote healthy development. And there are really lots of those now that have a good deal of evidence behind them. These include, for example, tax policies such as child deduction credit and earned income tax credit that show in experimental and quasi-experimental studies demonstrated effects in terms of improving children's well-being and the well-being of their families. It also includes initiatives like family leave, access to affordable health care and home visitation, just to name a few. But what I'd like to do in providing an example of this research evidence is to focus on the intersection between families and systems of childcare and early education. Because if nothing else, what COVID has taught us is how much parents' employment and parents' economic well-being, indeed parents' mental health, depends on reliable access to education and to childcare for the children in their homes. Now, I want to note that I'm not using the term daycare here, because what the brain development research has shown us is that the old idea of daycare as a place to park the children to promote adult workforce participation is really obsolete now. What the brain development research has shown us, in other words, is that what we need are systems of early care and early education that are actively promoting the child's developing brain and cognitive and social emotional skills while they are in those settings that enable their adults to work. What we're looking for, in other words, are not just slots where we can park kids, but rather settings in which are developmentally facilitating for children. This is why I use the term early care and education. And the research is really compounding to show us how significant and long-term are the effects of high-quality early education programs for children. In fact, one of the most impressive of these studies is a project that was just published last month, in which researchers reported on a randomized trial evaluation concerning the effects of a public preschool program for 4-year-old children run by the Boston Public Schools. It turns out that because of high demand for this program that took place in the late 1990s and early 2000s, a lottery was needed to determine which of the 4,000 children in this study during this period were accepted into the program and therefore benefited from a year of high quality preschool, and which were not permitted into the program and therefore had to have that year without high quality preschool. The remarkable thing about this study, besides its large sample size, is that these children were followed up for 20 years. And the results of the lottery that randomized children into preschool or not have been absolutely remarkable. Over the course of this time, researchers found, for example, that there were significant differences in high school graduation rates, favoring those children who'd had preschool experience. There were also significant differences when children took the SAT in how they performed on that. I'm using the example here of the percentage of children who scored in the top quartile on SAT math scores, again, favoring children with early childhood preschool experience. In addition, those children were more likely to enter university on time and therefore maintaining the momentum of their educational achievements compared to children without preschool experience. But it's important to notice not just the cognitive skills that distinguished the children who'd had this remarkable year at age 4 of preschool. Because what a high quality early education program will do is also strengthen the social, emotional, and self-regulatory skills that children are developing during this period. So it perhaps is no surprise, but important nevertheless, that one other difference between children who had preschool experience and those who had not was in the record of high school disciplinary problems. I'm using standardized values here. So the preschool kids are actually negative compared to non-preschool kids. That is, they're showing a marked decrease or lower level of high school disciplinary problems compared to children without preschool experience. Remarkably, these effects were especially strong for boys compared to girls. And I think taken together across different developmental domains, they really illustrate that snowball effect. The ways in which, from this study and many, many others, we found that experience in high quality early education programs help to set in process, help to set in motion developmental achievements and capacities that build in other ways to create a positive momentum for children's school achievement and also for their social and behavioral competence. So let me turn to the other domain. That is, what evidence do we have that we have strategies that can help remove obstacles to success? And to illustrate this, I want to consider the experience of young children in families under economic stress, because one of the very sad stories of young children in this country, and it has been true for some time, is the very high rate of children who are living in families in poverty. This figure is drawn from statistics from US Census Bureau, retrieved at the end of 2020. And although the poverty rate for children as well as for others have decreased over the last 5 years or so, we still find a surprising proportion of children, almost 16%, who are living in families less than 100, that are making less than 100% of the federal poverty level. Another 20% who are living in families that we would consider poor at 100 to 200% of the federal poverty level. Indeed, what the research shows is that the younger the child, the more likely the child is to be living in poverty. But the remarkable thing that I want to underscore by this is not just the incidence of poverty for young children, but also the way that poverty is a powerful predictor of children's negative long-term developmental outcomes. If I were to be asked, what is the single most important predictor of children's future, I would have to say it would be poverty. Because we know that children, for example, who spend at least 1 year in poverty are 10 times more likely to be poor by age 35 compared to families children living in families who are never poor. We also know that the effects of poverty extend intergenerationally. And what we know is that these effects of poverty are so important because they affect children's development on multiple levels. Research has documented the impact that poverty has on children's cognitive and social functioning, including their incidence of behavioral and emotional problems and heightened depression. Poverty impacts children's competence and self-concept, including their lower aspirations for success and lower self-esteem. And we also know that poverty impacts children's health and biology. That is, the under the skin influences that include impacts on brain development, diminished immune functioning, and altered stress neurobiology. And these developmental domains influence each other over time, and in such a way as to create, again, that snowball effect, that negative developmental cascade that helps to increase the odds that children who are living in poverty, in families in poverty in the early years, are going to be continuing some of those developmental challenges and disadvantages as they move into the school years, as they move into the high school years, as they move into early adulthood. And yet, and this is the good news story here, these childhood effects of poverty are malleable. There are a number of evidence-based interventions that have been shown to address both parental and child needs through community interventions. These include means-tested income supplements, such as Earned Income Tax Credit and SNAP or food stamps that really create demonstrated improvements in children's immediate and long-term well-being, beginning prenatally, amazingly enough. Families that get food stamps prenatally have children who years later are showing greater health. This includes also poverty's targeting programs targeting children's health, including Medicaid, the WIC program, free and reduced lunch programs that not only improve children's health, but also strengthen their cognitive development. And these impacts, if we inaugurate them during the early years, seem to be especially important. All this is described in a very important National Academy of Sciences volume entitled A Roadmap to Reducing Childhood Poverty that was published in 2019 that really offers a national plan for how we might think about reducing the poverty rate for children to a significant degree. So what do children need from you? This is my last slide. Well, really several things, many of which you'll learn and achieve through this Fellows Program. First of all, we need attention to the science of early childhood development, the translation of that science into programs and policies suited to the situations in which young children are living. The science has many more translational implications than it's ever had before, and this is important. We also need recognition of the multiple levels of influence on children from families, from communities, from local and state policies, but also the multiple levels of impact, cognitive, social, self-regulatory, and biological processes in the brain and body and their interaction. We need respect, therefore, for the importance of early experiences and the significance of starting early and starting well for children's healthy development. I hope that you'll enlist natural partners to children's interests, such as parents and other caregivers, business leaders, agency staff, other elected officials, to create consortiums of concern. And finally, I hope you will, in all of these efforts, mobilize a devotion to patient capital to create sustainable change for children. The term patient capital was one that I learned from oil company executives who were having the investments they make in new oil wells. And they recognize that the kind of drilling that the exploratory drilling they do is not likely to yield much impact, is not likely to create a productive well within the year after they have drilled. Indeed, they argue sometimes waiting for 5 or 7 years is not long enough. But what is required is patient capital to realize that the yield of your early investment is going to take some time to show. And I think that's also true for early childhood development and its long-term benefits. But as the 20-year study of the Boston preschool program shows us, those effects will be shown and they will be ones that we will be proud of. So my best to you in your work at the Fellows Program. I am grateful to be able to talk to you now, and I wish you the best.
Great. So that was Dr. Thompson. I hope you learned a lot from that and that you saw that it kind of tied in some of the things that you've already been exposed to, even some of the things that have come up in our conversations today already. So very grateful to him. Again, if you have any feedback or any questions, please feel free to let me know. You can send me a direct chat. You can email me. You can reach out to me or anyone else from NCSL, however you prefer. And I'm happy to get that to him for you. So I'll turn it back over to Allison.
Thanks, Melissa. I'm going to try to share my screen. All right. Tomorrow, we're going to have a lot of time in small groups and having deeper conversations. But today, we did just want to give an opportunity to sort of think about what you just learned. So if everyone has either a piece of note paper in their workspace, or if you're on a computer, perhaps you have a Word document you can just open. We wanted to give you about 2 or 3 minutes and just to jot down a few thoughts, something you learned, and something that you are interested in still learning from either a fellow or an NCSL staff person. So just take a few moments and jot something down. I'm kidding. That might actually be annoying to people. We'll just give you some quiet time to consider. All right. Feels like most of you, we're just at about 2.5 minutes. Curious, is there anyone on the line that might like to share with the group what you jotted down? No pressure. But is anyone brave enough to unmute and share some of the thoughts that they jotted down?
Sure, I can share.
Oh, great, thank you.
I didn't really know the link between the earned income tax credit and the, long-term health effects on children. So that's good. I know we passed a capital gains tax in Washington State that should fund some of that, although I think the governor vetoed that part. I defer to Claire Wilson on that if she's still around, but that was good to know.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Anyone else? Another person or two want to share something, or maybe even something you don't know that you want to make sure you figure out during the program? Okay, Rep. Wicks.
So this is pretty basic, I guess, but just through everything, all the homework we did too, that investing in children and their families and these mechanisms is economic development. And so I've been working with some of our county folks about how to use some leftover ARPA funds or what we have available and how the county can do that, because they haven't quite put that in there. But I think I just jotted down so many different facts that I can prove, like, if we do this right now, then we will help our economic recovery. And so it's obvious, but it's not. And there's just so many things that connected, especially with what our last presentation shared. So simple, but also it kind of helps direct where we start putting those dollars.
Great, thank you. And yeah, remember, if there's ever a time you need additional information, or if you missed something that was mentioned on a video, or you want more research, connect with any of us, and we can certainly provide you probably more information than you wish you would have at the same time. So call on us, we are your organization. Anyone else want to share before we move on?
I'll share something really quick. I actually we're all here because we have an interest in this topic and a passion for it. But the thing that I always struggle with is, we know that the early years are important, but how do we convince enough people to get on board to actually put the funding and the policies in place to ensure that we're investing in those early years? So that's a struggle that we've had the folks on the Early Childhood Committee know it's important, but getting that broader reach to other legislators to make sure that we can actually pass policies and fund programs that do what we need them to do. So that's sort of my lingering question that I've had over all these discussions.
I appreciate that. And hopefully those are things that we can continue to talk about as a group. I think now I'm going to turn it back over to Melissa. We're going to do a quick little stretch. I told you that was going to happen. And then we're going to make sure we meet everyone else that's on the line today. So Melissa.
Thank you. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind advancing the slides for me, as Allison promised. And Rep Gray, this is not yoga, so don't judge me, but hopefully it gets us moving a little bit. And I found a nice way to put some animations there for us. So I'm going to keep my camera on. I hope you will too. Nothing too embarrassing, I promise. But for this first one, we're going to try to target upper body and arms. So you can see how the model is doing it in the illustration, where you clasp your hands together above your head with your palms facing outward, so they kind of face up towards the ceiling. And then just push your arms up, stretching upward. She's moving very quickly. You don't have to. And then you can also hold it up there for a minute, come back down if you'd like, just kind of like whatever feels good. Try to sit up straight and keep your back straight as you're doing this. I think that'll help a little bit if you have better posture. I'm actually feeling it in my shoulders as well. So that's a nice one to just kind of always have in your back pocket that just sort of wakes you up a little bit. And then Allison, if you want to switch over to the second one, we just want to introduce them to you quickly. The second one is looking at a torso stress, or also known as a trunk rotation. So you can see how she's doing it in the video. I think you can do it with just the arms if you'd like. If you want to get a little bit further into it, you can cross your legs as she does. But so what you want to do is sit up straight again, keep your feet firmly on the ground, face forward to start with. And then if you can place one arm around the back of your chair, and then that leg that's on that same side as that arm, cross it. And then you can see she's got her opposite hand kind of like leaning over that leg, and then just twist your upper body in the direction of that arm and leg. that are up around the chair and cross. And then that's another one. You can hold it for a little bit, and then you can kind of come back, or you can go back and forth as often as you need. Again, I think you can get a good stretch with just your arm around the chair, but if you add the leg into it, you can feel a little bit of a stretch in your leg as well. And then once you feel like you got a good stretch there, we can switch and do the same thing on the other side. Yeah, and again, try to remember to sit up straight, kind of keep your body facing forward a little bit, or keep your hips forward, and then just turn your upper body to get a better stretch. And that's another one. So you can hopefully use those throughout. That I didn't make you get up out of your chair, so you can feel free to do that at any point during our meeting today to just kind of help you wake up and get the blood flowing again a little bit. And I'll turn it back over.
Thanks. My back just cracked, so that felt good. I wonder if anyone else just cracked their back. That was good. Okay, so I'll take the screen down in a second, but we're gonna wrap up introducing everyone on the line. I know there is at least a person or two who joined that I'll call on. If I miss anyone at the end of it, let us know. And we've got a few more NCSL staff as well. So let me stop sharing so we can see your pretty faces. Okay, we're gonna go first to Representative Jamie Keel, who was not on initially, and I apologize. Rep Keel, you'll have to tell us what state you're from.
Alabama.
Alabama, okay. Please share with us something from your desk that motivates you or has some significance that you would like to tell with the rest of the group.
Well, on my desk, I have a book about veterans from Alabama that some of you may recognize. The contributor to it is Paul Bryant Jr. And his dad was Paul Bryant, the famous football coach from Alabama, and Bear Bryant, some folks would say. And so Paul Bryant Jr. is a historian and a preserver of history. And so I enjoy looking at that book from time to time.
Thank you for sharing. We're going to go over to Washington, D.C. and meet another NCSL staff person. My colleague, Margaret Weil, is a policy director in our D.C. office. Margaret, would you like to say hello?
Thanks, Allison. Hi, everybody. It's nice to virtually see all of you. So like many of you, I've been working remotely from my home. So I had to kind of think what I could use for this. So I'm looking over at my bookcase. So I think I grabbed two books. Oh, you're not gonna be able to see them with the background. But I think for me, what keeps me going, being bipartisan and nonpartisan staff, is just curiosity. I think the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. I think that's the Einstein quote. I've been at NCSL for about 5 years and worked in our Denver office doing state policy research, and I'm now in our DC office. And the amount that I've learned over the last 5 years about early childhood development and childcare is unbelievable. So I think what drives me is just the curiosity for learning more and seeing where the research takes us. So I think that's mine.
Thank you, Margaret. And I know I'm getting a few messages from folks, so I understand if you're multitasking. So if you can still say hello, that's great. We'd love to hear your voice. If you can't, we understand. So Senator Susan Moran from Massachusetts. Okay, she's unable to go right now, but she shared that she has pictures of her granddaughters that inspire her for her universal child care bill. So that's very nice. How about Representative Courtney Neron from Oregon? Multitasker also. I'm not sure if you're in. Oh, there you are.
Hi, good morning, or morning here still. I am really inspired by this already. I just want to start there, and I'm loving this and can't wait for future meetings with you all. I have various places that I work now that we're in this virtual setting, but I chose a picture of my children who are more a motivator for me than just about anything. You know, why we do this work for so many of us is the future. And I loved, was it Senator DeMario talking about plants? I always have plants around me. And to me, there's a connection, right? We're giving things what they need to thrive. We're figuring out how to plan better for the future, how to leave the world a better place. So those are some things that inspire me, helping everyone and everything grow better.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I don't have any plants in this room, and I've got pictures of flowers, but that I would like some green in here now that you're all talking about that. Representative Susan Pulcifer from Utah.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, excellent. So we actually are our session ends the beginning of March, but we're in committee meetings today. So I am at the Capitol. And when I'm at my workspace at home, I have a picture of my family. And that is so inspiring to me, and children and grandchildren. Here I'm sitting actually in our House chambers right now. And there is a picture. Let's see if I can get it. Yeah. And show you. There is a picture just above me. Let's see if there. Maybe you can see that. And it's a picture of Sarah Young, who was the first woman in the United States to cast a vote. And Utah wasn't the first state to allow women to vote. That was Wyoming, but Utah had the first vote. And that just reminds me of all the great things that have happened in our state before I came, and all the great things that I can do to build upon their successes and to do good work for families, for children, and for all of Utah. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. How about let's do some NCSL staff. I'm going to go over to my colleague, Riley Sawyer, who's a staff coordinator. Riley, you want to share something? I know everyone's had a great opportunity to interact with Riley, so let's hear what motivates her.
Hi, everyone. I am also working from home, and so my desk is quite small. Above it, though, I have a map. It's a world map, and on it, I have lots of pins that have different colors, showing places I've been, places I'd like to go, and trips I currently have planned, which I am now starting to add to now that restrictions are being lifted. So I'm very excited about that. And lately, that's been a huge motivator for me, just having something a little bit different to finally look forward to.
I like that, Riley. Yeah, it is exciting to travel again. Wearing a mask on the plane is very hot, I will say that. Representative Alicia Rule from Washington, are you on the line? Senator Jesse Solomon from Washington. I think we.
Hey, good morning.
We saw you. Yeah, nice background. We wish we were all outside right now.
Yeah, I mean, why not go for a walk while I'm on a conference call? So I have a mug on my desk, which I don't have in front of me right now. It says, "Get shit done." And, you know, we have a situation in Washington State where the current legislative makeup facilitates that goal. And so it's not going to be that way forever. So I think there's a lot of motivation there to pass good legislation while we have that window. So that's why I have that. And then I'm working on getting my grandfather's dog tags. I want to set up I wouldn't call it a shrine, but a picture of him and sort of frame it. He served in the 69th Artillery Division in the Battle of the Bulge, fighting the Nazis. And he died a while ago, but his dog tags were at his brother's house, and his brother's house burned down to the ground. And they found those dog tags. And I asked my aunt if I could have them, and I want to display them in our Senate office, just to honor my grandfather. And she said yes. And she said, "Well, why don't I send it to you?" I'm like, "No, I'll come get it. I don't want it to get lost in the mail." And then COVID hit, so we haven't had a chance to do that yet. But you know, it's a way to stay connected, way to understand that, as one of our representatives from Alabama was saying, that freedom shouldn't be taken for granted, but also that we need to be careful, understand what conflict is, and seek ways that we can work together, which seems to be harder and harder to do, but is more and more important. That's the lesson that I get from that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Let's go over to Senator Joyce and Buenaventura from Hawaii. Are you on the line? I think I saw you.
Yes, so I'm not going to turn on my video because I'm driving.
Fair enough.
So thank you for having me. So what inspires me? I am right now a freshman senator, but I was 3-term representative, and in the back of my office, well, a big mural in my office was basically my district map, which had at that time the flowing lava. I represent the most volcanic active district in the country. And those of you who remember, the 2018 lava flow basically decimated almost half my district. So what inspires me is the resilience of my community and having to undergo that. And not only that, it's also one of the more poorer districts in the state. So when people think of Hawaii as basically a very expensive place to live, one of the reasons, even in the poorest areas, is because we have to have the ability to rebuild when disaster strikes. So that's what inspires me, is the resiliency of my community. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. How about Karen Smith from Alabama? Karen, are you on the line?
I'm here. Sorry, I came late to the meeting. Can you hear me?
Can hear you perfectly well. Yep.
Okay. Hi. How's everybody today? I guess I'm on Central Time, but I didn't see that it was Eastern Time, so I'm sorry about that. But something that inspires me, not much, but I have so much paperwork on my desk right now that I'm inspired about. I'm an analyst, so I'm inspired by how much work is done by our legislators, and trying to just keep things going. And I'm glad to see everybody.
Thank you.
today.
Yeah, as a 28-year veteran, is that correct that I signed the application?
That's correct.
You
getting a little close to retirement.
Work. Yeah, you make that legislature work, I'm sure, and have great relationships.
Yes, ma'am, I sure do. Thank you.
Well, one more NCSLer, Jenna Bannon. Are you? It's hard to see everyone in these squares. Jenna, are you still on the line?
Hi, Allison. I am here.
I still don't see you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Jenna. I am calling in my sunroom home office in Golden, Colorado. And what inspires me, I have a picture of my children from when they were little, and they're about 2 and 6. They're now 12 and 17. This is a reminder of, the just vital importance of the early years, of the connection between my 2 kiddos. And they're now 17 and 12. We just weathered the pandemic, the 3 of us. My daughter was a senior, really learned a lot about resilience, about mental health, and really the importance of just staying connected to what matters, our children and our families. So thanks, and I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you. Representative Vargas, before you jump off, do you want to introduce? We're just going a little out of order.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andy Vargas. I'm the state representative here in Massachusetts, the vice chair of the Economic Development and Emerging Technologies Committee. I have a picture of my grandmother here that motivates me. She came here from the Dominican Republic and worked 3 different jobs across 3 different boroughs in New York City before moving to Massachusetts. And when my mother was finishing up her degree, she took care of me. And so I certainly wouldn't be here today without the childcare and love that she provided. Really excited to be a part of this group. Obviously, I think we're all here because we know the impact of early education and care, and now our task is to figure out how we actually scale it and make it happen for everybody. So grateful to be here with you all.
Thank you. And yes, we will talk about some solutions. And again, hopefully, some folks are working on things already. So good to brainstorm as a group, but we definitely have some real well-known experts coming through, and we'll talk about some financing, which that's always the big question, right? Like, great idea, how do we pay for this? So we'll have a little bit of a financing workshop to think through some strategies that might be working in other states. So we got 3 more people, unless we missed anyone, but Representative Marianne Shellcross-Smith from Rhode Island.
Good afternoon from the littlest state, Rhode Island. I'm a great grandmother, freshman rep. Actually, it's my 2nd term. I was back in 2008 to 10. My life quote has been, "My work is my play." And I've been playing in early childhood for 48 years. This is the symbol that I have. It's not only my desk, my table, it's my keys. I take it with me everywhere I go. to remind me about early childhood. And I also can't tell you in 48 years how many children I taught their colors with this keychain. Certainly the whole part of my life, I could not be here today without my family. So number one, family is first. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Jared Solomon from Maryland.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. So there's a couple of things, like many on the call. We are a part-time legislature from January through April, so I am not in my office in Annapolis, despite the beautiful background of our the oldest state capital in the country. But in my home office, I've got a footprint. I don't know if you all can see it with the background, but it's of our. He's now about 13 months old, but he was a full-on pandemic baby, and we took this footprint that we did for family. When he was about 7 months old. So I think a lot about him. I'm a former teacher, and I think about what benefits he gets. A lot of the students I taught in Baltimore didn't, and that drives me. And then in my office in Annapolis, I used to work, before I was elected, I worked on Capitol Hill for Senator Casey from Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from originally, and probably one of the biggest champions on Capitol Hill for early childhood programs and investments. And we always used to do a really cool photo, one type of photo of the Capitol, and then everybody in our office would sign and put a note, and the senator would write something on there. And I have it up hanging in my office, and I mean, it really was a dream job until I had the opportunity to run. And I think a lot about my colleagues and what they're working on, and I have so much respect for Senator Casey. I think a lot about the kind of work that he's doing and my colleagues are still doing. So drives a lot of what keeps me going in Annapolis.
Thank you. Yes, our coworker Jenny just had a baby during the pandemic as well. So bless you. Challenging. I feel for you, even though I don't have children, but I can only imagine. So thank you. And then last but not least, unless we missed anyone else, Representative James Tipton from Kentucky. Representative, are you on the line?
Good afternoon from the Bluegrass State. Can everyone hear me today?
Yes.
I'm very thankful today that my last name starts with T, so I had some time to think about this. But I'm at home today, not in my Capitol office. I've got a lot of things there that I keep to try and remind me of my background in my district. And one thing I want to share a little story. I attended a school. We had 1st through 12th grade all in the same building. It was Taylorsville School. And it was, the original part of that building was very old. They added on to it while I was in my school years. A few years ago, they announced that they built a new school. They were going to tear a portion of that school down. So somebody made a model of that school. So I've got a model of the school that I attended. And what's really neat is they're doing a construction project right now. And in August, that's going to be the new early childhood center in our community. So as that relates to this, one other thing, I keep a bulletin board in my office. I have a lot of visitors to the office. I enjoy young people. Pages, I always take pictures with them, and I keep pictures of the young people who came and visit me. We take pictures together in my office just to remind me they are the future, and that's why we're there, and looking forward to participating everybody in this group.
Thank you for sharing. I was caught in a lie. I apologize. Representative Amy Wozlowick from Minnesota.
Thanks, Allison. Hi, everyone. Amy Wozlowick. I'm also at home right now. We are in special session, but we don't have floor session today. So I'm at home, not in the office. But I keep a folder in my filing cabinet at work that has notes and thank you notes that I received from constituents. And similar to Senator Hardy, I have pictures from some early childhood students that are in my community. And that's just, it's a nice reminder of, you know, when things get hard, it's nice to look over those pictures and those notes. And it's also a good reminder of why we're doing this work.
Excellent. And last, but certainly not least, Representative Amy Wicks from Washington.
Hello, Representative Wicks, Emily Wicks, sorry. I never went to my office. I'm a freshman legislator and we did everything remotely this year. So we were planning on updating our upstairs and my partner husband got into gear and made me an office, but I just put things up, which is exciting. And what I love to look at is the Lasso of Truth. This was created by my friends with the Women's Political Caucus, an organization that I'm president of. I've been part of that organization since 2013, and the women in that organization really fuel me and all the women that we support and endorse over the years. And so, you know, we exist to recruit, train, and elect women to public office, but we support women that are going to champion policies that do support women. And so they've been just a great fuel and a great energy as I'm in the legislative session. Many of them work in this space. And so, that's what I look at. And, this amazing Marvel character, represents love and kindness. And so that's something that I like carrying with me as well. So thank you. Nice to meet everyone.
Yeah. I believe that's everyone. And if there are some that weren't here today, we can introduce at future meetings. I really do appreciate you all taking the time to sort of open up your house or your office, as it were, and sharing with us. It is nice to try to make connections. One thing I really miss from traveling for work meetings is that conversation over breakfast, breaking bread with folks, or just on the walk to the restroom, sharing something about the presenter we just heard. So to the extent possible, we are trying to create that environment, and I hope that it comes through to you all. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and turn things over to Jenny to wrap things up for today. So.
Well, thank you, everyone. Allison said, I really wish we were in the room with you today, but really nice to learn a little bit about all of you. We want to thank you for sharing, your motivation for this work. And as we sort of close out our time here, we're going to give you one last opportunity to really put into writing this open-ended question here: why early childhood policy matters to you? Because, you've got, as legislators tasked with focusing on and voting on and knowing about so many policies, and after the challenging and stressful session you've all had, have still prioritized early childhood. So let me go ahead and open this up. We're going to go to Mentimeter one last time. Allison's just dropped the link in for you. And this, you can use a phrase, you can use a sentence for your answer here. You can answer a couple of times if you like. I know a couple folks have mentioned how eager they are to really get into the what's and the how's and the different policies and strategies and programs we can do to make a difference. And I promise you the rest, basically from here on out, the rest of the program will really focus on that and get into the weeds of these policies and programs. But the reason we start with really the why on day one is to help, as so many of you said, to help us keep focused on our motivation, so that when we get lost in the weeds, we've kind of got this this North Star to help us come back to how we get this done, or I'm sorry, why we're doing this. And so also we're hoping, a few of you also mentioned that, the challenge you face, especially after an election when you've got new legislative colleagues, how do you bring them on board? How do you convince them that this is also important? So we hope that by reading what motivates your legislative peers here in the program might help you, think of some things, how you can connect with other legislators who are maybe new to this information. What is it that might motivate them to be open to these conversations? So keep your answers rolling in. I'll pause just for a moment here.
We need your Jeopardy music back, Allison.
Love to see the economic development. Yes, we'll get into sort of return on investment a little bit later in the program. Investing in a better future. I'm seeing future a few times here. I really loved, I think I mentioned in the chat, really loved Dr. Thompson's comment about the patient capital. Yeah, the investing for long term. Yes, love the crossover. We're not just talking about early learning, we're talking about health, we're talking about communities, we're talking about economics. We mentioned that, the economic development part of it. Foundation for our communities, foundation for the future, valuing our children, yes. All right, looks like the responsive slow, so I'll stop there. Thank you so much for playing along. This is really helpful. for us to know also what motivates you all, so we know sort of how to shape content as we move forward. Let me stop. Allison, if you don't mind sharing your slides next. Thanks. So what is coming up? Well, as we said, we'll be getting into the weeds of the research, the policies to support families and child well-being. Beginning tomorrow, we will be joined by Dr. Cynthia Osborne she's the founder of the National Prenatal to 3 Policy Impact Center. In Thinkific, and then Allison's going to drop in the chat as well, the roadmap created by the Policy Impact Center, as well as state profiles. So we encourage you to take a peek at the roadmap and then also your state's profile, which will show where your state falls within all of the policies that are evaluated in the roadmap. We will also spend some time in small groups tomorrow. Excuse me. Allison, if you can advance the slide. You'll get a little glimpse at our agenda for tomorrow. We'll spend some time in small groups where you can digest what you've heard from Dr. Osborne, what you've learned from your state's profile, and your own experience with these policies, challenges you faced, successes you've had. We know that the peer-to-peer learning is a huge value to folks in the program. So we'll spend some time in small groups. We'll also hear from some NCSL experts to hear sort of the national landscape on a few of the policies listed here, and some policy speed rounds. And then in the meantime, though, if you've got any questions, if you are curious about anything you heard today or want more resources on what you heard today, please reach out to Allison, Melissa, or I. You're also encouraged to talk to one another. You've got the listserv listed there. You also received the cohort roster in the mail with your package. That shows everybody's contact information. So as Allison was saying, we're missing out on sort of the informal chit chat around the table. So please be sure to reach out to one another if you've got questions, if you want to share something. And then also if you're documenting your journey on social media as we go, please be sure to @ us at ncsl.org and use the hashtag ECFellows. I'm not paying any attention to the chat, so hopefully I didn't miss anything. But we just really want to thank you for joining us today. We know you're also busy. We really appreciate the opportunity to get to know you and hear what motivates you, and we look forward to working with you for the rest of the summer. Anything else, Allison, Melissa, anyone else?
Just a big thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Feel free to bring coffee with you if you'd like, but we'll be back here, same link, at 10 Mountain Time, noon Eastern Time.
Same time, same place. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.